It's time to start.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Stanley's Stinkers, a unique look at college football where we pick the losers. That's right, the losers. Each week we'll look at 20 of the biggest games, we'll break down the teams, we'll analyze the coaches, and we might even flirt with the cheerleaders. But in the end, we'll predict the losers, or in this case, the stinkers in each of the contests. Stay tuned because this week's games are coming up. The 2012 college football season is entering week number 4, and according to the polls, not a lot has changed at the top from the end of the 2011 season. But almost everywhere else, there seems to be stress and strife with upsets and surprises. Despite that, we were still able to post an 80% success rate last week, picking the correct loser in all but 4 games. That brings our overall record to 48-12. Not bad considering we use reverse prognostication to pick the losers in college football's biggest games. With that said, here are the games that show up on the Stinkometer this week. Vanderbilt at Georgia. Coach Mark Richt has his silver-slacked canines back in full force following a few early suspensions, and that comes just in time for the meat of the SEC schedule. Despite having what many people call a team to beat, UGA has struggled early against much lesser opponents before pulling away in the second half. This week, they'll need a complete game effort against the Commodores, who, despite their record, will be a formidable foe. The game is between the hedges in Athens, and the home crowd might be disappointed, but then again, I doubt it. Stanley Stinker, Vanderbilt. Miami at Georgia Tech. The Hive will be buzzing this weekend in downtown Atlanta as Georgia Tech hosts the Stormy Ibis from Miami. Both teams come into the game with a single loss against the good opponent and wins against lesser opponents. This one will come down to the fourth quarter and will be decided by which team has a deeper defense. In a close one, Stanley Stinker, Miami. Florida Atlantic at Alabama. The Crimson Pachyderms have been cruising with early wins against 2 teams that were ranked in the preseason top 10. With that, Bama has perched themselves atop both major polls. It has a lot of people asking the question, who can beat Alabama? Strangely enough, it's the Owls visiting Tuscaloosa this weekend, and the previously stated question is not to be confused with a statement which references the nighttime call of the nocturnal birds from Boca Raton, because who cannot beat Alabama this weekend? Stanley Stinker, Florida Atlantic. Missouri at South Carolina. The forlorn fowl from Columbia will host Truman the Tiger this weekend in what could be a key SEC matchup. Missouri will be counting on a healthy James Franklin at quarterback, while South Carolina will be counting on a healed Connor Shaw behind their center. What may decide this game is how much aggravation the defense will cause the patched-up QBs. South Carolina's defense is making a name for itself this year. That name should be undefeated, at least after this one. Stanley Stinker, Missouri. Rutgers at Arkansas. Now, the season's falling apart at the seams from the Woo Pig Sueys from Fayetteville. With the offseason problems and now back-to-back losses, the team may need to regroup around someone new. But with injured quarterback Tyler Wilson calling his team a bunch of quitters and the head coach serving as an interim leader, it may be hard to find a trough for this litter of Wee Pig Sueys. Rutgers, meanwhile, comes in undefeated and looking for attention. On paper, the choice is normally always the SEC, but in this game, I'm afraid momentum gets the call. In an upset of sorts, Stanley Stinker, Arkansas. All right, stay tuned, sports fans, because we are just getting started. There is at least one more upset on the horizon, plus you'll find out who'll lose this weekend in the loveliest village on the plains. First, though, check out the people who make all this possible. No, not Mama. It's the sponsors. Stanley Stinkers is brought to you each and every week by AnytimeCostumes.com. It's that time of the year again, Halloween. This year, be the hit of the party with a costume from AnytimeCostumes.com. Passion by Eve. Lotions and potions and things that go buzz in the night. It is a tasteful way to rekindle that spark. Check them out online or on Facebook. www.passionbyeve.com. Russell Athletic. It's all the athletic gear you need plus more. Camo undergarments. Yep. Click on our sponsors link and see for yourself. Stanley Stinkers is brought to you also by 5 Front PR. When it's time to take your company past the forefront, call 5 Front PR. And by CBSSports.com Fan Shop. Bama jerseys, Bulldog gear, Texas tees, everything for college and pro sports, everything. CBSSports.com fan shop. And don't forget to like Stanley Stinkers page on Facebook for a chance to win the brand new Stanley Stinkers hat. Corso doesn't even have one yet. The drawing will be held at the end of the month. All right, it's time for a few more games. Remember, we use reverse prognostication to pick the losers in college football's biggest games. Experience the joy of losing in a whole new light. Arizona at Oregon. Rich Rodriguez and his Desert Cats prowl into Eugene for the first real test for both teams this year. Arizona is riding high with their 3-0 start and a place in the top 25 polls. But Oregon's been there before, and the hype shouldn't affect the Quackers, especially with the arm and the legs of Marcus Mariota, who has emerged as a new Heisman candidate. In the end, the Cats just won't tread water like the Ducks. Stanley Stinker, Arizona. Kansas State at Oklahoma. The Wildcats from Kansas State go sweeping down the plains this weekend for the Big 12 opener for both teams. Statistically, the game is not as close as the records may suggest, with both teams holding unblemished marks. This one will come down to the passing game. K-State ranks 82nd in pass defense, and Landry Jones is just now getting a good start for the Boomer Sooners offense. Look for a whole lot of points in this one. Stanley Stinker, Kansas State. Michigan and Notre Dame. For the first time in more than a decade, the Leprechauns from South Bend are off to a 3-0 start. Meanwhile, the Polecats from Ann Arbor have finally gotten back on track after an early season embarrassment to Alabama. Notre Dame bested Michigan State last week with a strong defense, but if Denard Robinson gets going early, the home crowd won't find much to cheer about. Look for the luck to end for the Irish in this one. In an upset, Stanley Stinker, Notre Dame. Clemson at Florida State. Florida State is undefeated thanks to three crackerjack opponents. Clemson is also undefeated, but they did at least have one semi-tough opponent with Auburn. The Seminole fans have been waiting to see if their team is as good as the hype, and this should settle that question. But the answer may not be what the fans in Tallahassee want. Sure, FSU will come out with a win in this one, but it should be close, maybe even in overtime. Stanley Stinker, Clemson. LSU at Auburn. The Striped Cats from Auburn seem to be in the midst of some good old-fashioned growing pains. Strapped by turmoil in the offseason, the actual games haven't been much released for the former champions. Auburn did manage an overtime win last week against ULM, but that shouldn't be a big enough confidence booster as the Bengal Tigers from LSU invade the loveliest village on the plains. The last time I saw a game between these two teams in Auburn, the field house burned down. It should be a barn burner again this time, but it will be LSU fanning the flames. Stanley Stinker, Auburn. And while we're at it, here are a few more games that showed up on the Stinkometer this week. Ole Miss will wash away Tulane's Green Wave. Florida will swamp Kentucky. Mississippi State will beat South Alabama. Texas A&M will corral South Carolina State. Tennessee will zap the Akron Zips. Ohio State will extinguish the UAB Blazers. TCU will beat Virginia. Maryland will stink against West Virginia. Michigan State will shoot down the Eagles of Eastern Michigan, and USC will rebound from their upset with a win against California. Stanley Stinkers is intended for entertainment only. A free podcast and blog are available online at stanleystinkers.com. Also, look for us in your favorite newspaper, or you can also like our Facebook page for a chance to win the new Stanley Stinkers hat. Stanley Stinkers is produced by Gramagdala Broadcasting. Any rebroadcast, republication, or other use of this program without the expressed written permission of Stanley Stinkwich is appreciated. Join us again next week as we use reverse prognostication to pick the losers in college football's biggest game.